that convenience is a good enough reason to continue funding the destruction of the planet?
I think that financial burden is, not the destruction of the planet. That's a pretty subjective way of phrasing that question, and I don't really care for it. Pretty much in California we have major issues with fires. There's huge plastic issues in the oceans and just the overuse of it in general. I mean, just we need awareness on climate change.
Right.
To begin with, you know, just stop letting people deny it, for one.
So what do you think we should do as a society to try to address some of the leading factors in climate change?
I think that going to alternative plastics like hemp plastics and things like that, to where you're not negating the fact that we use plastic for everything.
Right.
And it's an incredibly useful thing. But we need to make it biodegradable. We need to make it out of hemp. We also need to get rid of it properly.
Right.
I mean, if you burn it through a 3-furnace system, you know, and you're burning the gases and the gases and the gases, you can get rid of it. I mean, there's ways to at least burn it down to its original elements. You know, it's the mismanagement of our resources that's causing. Get my thoughts together properly for you.
No, yeah, you're totally right. It's largely to do with what we as individuals are consuming. We're these hyper-consumerists.
It's not the individuals, honestly. I think a lot of Americans, particularly, especially Californians, are very, very aware of our use, and we try to keep it down a lot, but it's major corporations that are allowed to dump their waste into the oceans, you know, dumping nuclear waste in the oceans. Garbage companies that dump, you know, giant ships full of trash into the ocean. It's a lot of big business that does most of the waste. Like, as humans and individuals, we're all pretty conscious, but not on a social scale, I guess. Not to where we're holding our businesses accountable and our government accountable.
Yeah, they don't, they're not properly regulated. We allow these corporations to regulate themselves, so they dump massive waste into, do you know the industry that is actually the leading cause of toxic runoff?
No.
The one industry? It's actually the animal agriculture industry. That's crazy, and it makes sense because you're thinking of thousands upon millions of animals that are crammed into these tiny spaces. So much waste gets just run off into our waters and streams. And then most crops are grown to feed to livestock because, you know, cows eat 6 to 12 times what a human would eat. So that's all pesticides that's running off because of crops that we don't necessarily need to be growing. Those could just be fed straight to the people. So animal agriculture, you know, is responsible for 91% of the Amazon deforestation. That is one thing that we can, as individuals, on an individual level, actually fight climate change with by changing our dietary practices. Have you ever thought about anything like that at all?
I grew up on a ranch, so I believe in farm raising your animals in humane conditions if you're going to eat them. I firmly believe in eating animals, but you should be raising them in humane conditions.
Right. So what would you describe as humane way of killing and enslaving another animal?
Well, the humane way of killing it, like with a pig.
Oh, the animal, yeah.
Okay, well, for instance, when you put down a pig, there's basically an air-powered thing that hits into the back of the brainstem, and it kills them instantaneously with no pain.
Right, a bolt gun, right?
Yeah.
Does it always kill them instantly, or does it just render them unconscious?
If you do it right, it kills them instantly every time.
So in the mass production industries that we have now, do you think it's always done right?
Oh, probably not.
Right. So,
but when you're farm raising your stuff and you're actually humanely doing it, then yeah, it is. Like if you have the humane chicken ranches versus the KFC chicken ranches are totally different in how they kill their birds.
So humane means to show compassion. How can we show an animal that's sentient, that feels pain, suffering, and love, and fear? How can we show them compassion by breeding them into existence and then cutting their throat or bolt gunning them in the back of the head?
It wouldn't have existed in the first place had you not bred it to.
Exactly. And why do they breed them into existence? Because consumers pay for this product,
but
right?
There's nothing wrong with eating. I don't think there's anything wrong with consuming an animal. It's naturally there to do. Animals consume other animals. We need protein to survive. Now, should they be in little tiny pens, never allowed to move their entire lives? No, absolutely not.
Right.
You know, and we have enough property and acreage, even in the United States, to have everything have a little more space. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, you can have decent-sized pens for pigs. Pigs naturally graze and stay in herds and stuff, but the ones that we have now wouldn't survive out in the wild anyway. Like, they've all been so bred in different
genetically
ways.
modified, for selective domestication. So you said that humans do need protein. You're totally right. Do you think we can get protein from other sources other than dead flesh of an innocent animal?
Sure, but I'm not going to eat soy because Monsanto's ruined it.
Okay, well, soy isn't the only source of protein,
no,
right?
But
soy is
there's
just one
lots
bean.
of it. But with the genetic modification that we have going on with plants, there's a lot of plants that you can't eat nowadays.
Sure.
Because, like specifically, Monsanto has ruined the plant itself, gotten rid of all the nutrients.
With pesticides and things. So can we get organic plants that aren't genetically altered as much?
I mean, sometimes, but it's really hard to find now because the problem with the genetically modified plants is that as soon as they pollinate something else, that genetic modification goes into that new plant.
Right.
So it's actually a taking over problem. At some point, there won't be any plants that haven't been genetically modified, and that's an issue because they're poison and they cause cancers.
Right. So we can get our protein from a handful of animal sources by exploiting animals for those things, which is so resource intensive. Like we talked about, the leading industry that does damage to the planet is actually animal agriculture. So we could just cut that out and get all of our protein from plants. Are you aware that all plants have protein? You don't have to stick with any one plant. There's over 20,000 to 80,000 edible plant foods out there.
There's lots of nuts
and only a handful of animals that we can exploit. So what do you think would be the argument for not cutting out those animal agriculture products and just eating plants? What do you think is wrong with doing a plant-based diet?
It's a lot harder to, it takes a lot more water and it's a lot harder to grow and harvest almonds than it is to raise a pig.
Okay,
you also get significantly more product from the pig than you do from, say, one almond tree.
Okay, so are you aware that cows, for example, eat 6 to 12 times what a human would eat? Because they're big animals, right? They're big 400-pound beasts.
They eat a shit ton of grass,
Right, total grains, grass, wheat, soy. We grow 45% of the world's land mass is used to grow crops that feed the livestock. So that's a complete waste. So even if you want to reduce the plant growth and the waste of land for plant crops and pesticides, you should still cut out animal agriculture because that'll reduce your plant consumption globally, worldwide. Have you ever thought about that at all?
No, I haven't, but I really don't think that animal agriculture is our big issue. I think that the plastic that we can't get rid of in our environment is the issue. I think that the chemical dumping is our issue.
Right.
I think that, military testing is a huge issue when they're dropping bombs in deserts and ruining the environment like that.
Right.
I think there's so many other ways that we can attack this environmental climate change without trying to force people to change their diets to abide by somebody else's moralistic code.
Right? You can only educate them and get them to think for themselves.
You can't force people to change their moralistic code, but you can get them to change their ways. It's easier to regulate the government and tell them no, they can't drop bombs in deserts or on islands, or they can't dump waste into oceans, than it is to get an entire society to quit eating meat.
Oh, no one's talking about getting everyone to go vegan at once, but I'm talking about individuals. So it's actually easier to change your habits as an individual for me and for you and for any one of us than it is to go around telling the military or the government.
Me changing my diet is not going to help when the government dumps nuclear waste into the ocean.
So we can fight both those things, right? We can take personal responsibility while also then fighting for societal change. We can do both. We don't have to choose one or the other. They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, but that is asking a lot of the general population. Like you or I, as activists, we would probably more than likely be willing to do that.
Sure.
Most people are not activists. Most people don't care that much. They have the it's not my problem, I don't look at its ideals.
Right.
So attacking the bigger problem of the chemical waste, because people have been eating animals for thousands and thousands of years, but we've only been having this climate change from pollution and stuff for the last 100 or 200 years since the Industrial Revolution.
Industrialization,
so that's what causes the issues, because people have been growing and raising cattle for thousands of years. They've been raising pigs for thousands of years. They've been raising chickens for thousands
Not
and
on
thousands
an industrial level, though.
But yeah, they have, because how would Rome feed their entire population if they weren't growing cattle or raising animals in an industrial population? Every society has had, even if it's not in the same form that we had, they still had to raise the same amount in order to feed their people.
Sure. So are you aware that there's archaeological studies showing that going back thousands of years, the farther back you go, the more plant-based our ancestors were eating? So like the gladiators were eating majoritively plant-based foods. They were some of our biggest, strongest humans.
Gladiators weren't biggest and strongest. Gladiators were slaves. They were very badly fed.
But they were trained to
They were really, really badly fed.
They were actually eating really nutrient-dense and calorically dense foods to make them strong so they could fight.
Yeah, our nutrient density in our food has gone down significantly because of genetic modification in our foods.
Right.
That's why we need such a high variety.
So what nutrients do you think we can get from animals that we can't get from plants?
Oh, I don't know specifically. I'm not a...
Okay.
I don't know enough about the chemical chemistry in it.
So it turns out there's no nutrient that you can't get out of plants that comes from an animal. Any nutrients, protein for example, that you're eating out of the dead flesh of an animal, that was fed to them with plants. That's where they originally got the food. The nutrient was from the plants that we fed them. So why don't we just go straight to the plants instead of eating those nutrients secondhand?
How do you counter the fact that people like it and that it tastes good?
Totally, yeah. Hey,
how do you counter that? Like, that I don't want to give up pork because I love pork.
Sure. So I'd
rather raise it myself.
Yeah,
than
there's
buy
a
it
lot of
from the
people
store.
that say a sensory pleasure justifies destruction to the planet or taking of a sentient individual's life. So are you saying that you would say my taste buds are worth more than an individual's life and the life of the planet as a whole?
No, that would be very...
Okay, but like you said, it's so hard to get people to think like, yeah, no, my taste buds are not worth more. It's a very egoistic kind of human-centric view of the world. Do you think that that's a problem with society, that people are kind of selfish, that until this comes, their climate change is knocking on their front door, right in their face, wildfires are burning out their homes and floods, they're not going to take individual responsibility. Do you think that's an issue with society today?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So what would keep you think, from eliminating those products, since we know they're so destructive? Other than just your taste buds?
Accessibility.
Okay.
And affordability.
Sure. So,
it's not cheap to be a vegan. It's incredibly expensive to be a vegan.
Is it?
Yeah, if you compare it to like how most people eat nowadays. A lot of people eat, I don't eat fast food at all, but most people eat fast food because that's what they can afford.
Sure,
they can afford a $2 hamburger from McDonald's. They can't afford a $10 bag of nuts from the store.
Yeah, no one's saying buy a big $10 bag of nuts.
No, I'm
you
saying
can get nuts in bulk for actually relatively cheap. Price per pound, plants are significantly cheaper than animal agriculture products in any store.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So you don't need to eat highly processed, expensive foods.
Beef is around like, $5 to $7 a pound. Pork is around, what, $4 a pound? A bag of almonds.
And going up because of the unsustainability.
A bag of almonds from a bulk store is going to cost you at least $8, $9.
Yeah, no one's forcing anyone to eat just almonds. There's plenty of nuts that we can eat that are affordable.
I'm not saying one specific, but most nuts do cost more than meat when you're buying it in a grocery store.
Okay, so, do you have data to support that, or is this just your personal objective?
My personal seeing it when I'm in the store, when I'm comparing prices between am I going to buy meat or am I going to buy the nuts?
Right.
Can I buy this extra bag of nuts to go in my salad, or should I just buy a thing of chicken because the protein from the chicken will get me farther? Or not farther, but the protein from the chicken, it costs less for that than it is for the same amount of protein I would get from the nuts. Right.
So, do you think that convenience is a good enough reason to continue funding the destruction of the planet?
I think that financial burden is, not the destruction of the planet. That's a pretty subjective way of phrasing that question, and I don't really care for it.
Well, it's not my opinion. This isn't my belief. It's actually just measurable data. Have you seen documentaries like Cowspiracy that go over the leading cause of climate change being animal agriculture?
No.
Okay, so most of our waste runoff, most of our toxic runoff from industries is animal agriculture, the large lion's share. Most of our greenhouse gases. Independent researchers from all around the world.
Which ones? Where?
All around the world. So we're going back decades, talking about thousands of research institutions. I can give you some info.
No. I gotta get back.
Okay, hey, thanks for chatting with me. I really appreciate it.
All right, so she just explained what her vision is of it. It's really, this is really awesome. But now we want to hear.